Tiffany Morgan was 28 years old and, in the eyes of anyone, she lived a dream life. She was the heiress to one of the largest restaurant and hotel chains in the country. A young millionaire who often appeared on the covers of business and lifestyle magazines. She lived in a glass-walled penthouse that offered a view of the entire city, had a closet overflowing with designer dresses, and traveled abroad as easily as someone hailing a cab. But behind all that shine, there was an unsettling silence. That night, Tiffany attended yet another of the countless parties her so-called friends organized just to stay close to her. The hall was full of music. Champagne glasses circulated from hand to hand, and laughter echoed from all sides. She smiled and responded politely to every comment, but it felt like being trapped in a stage play. No one there seemed to care who Tiffany really was, only what she represented: money, influence, and status. In the middle of the event, as she observed people talking about investments and travel, her eyes landed on something seemingly trivial: a waiter discreetly adjusting a tray that had fallen on the floor. Despite the rush, the young man took care not to disturb the guests, and even smiled at an older woman who almost bumped into him. That small gesture of kindness caught her attention. It was different from the superficiality of those around her. When the party ended, Tiffany removed her heels and walked across the apartment's balcony. The city seemed to breathe beneath her, alive in its nightlights, full of ordinary people going about their lives. Suddenly, a persistent question filled her mind. What would it be like to live without the masks that money imposed? What would it be like to sit in a restaurant without a reservation, order a dish without anyone recognizing her, to be treated simply as another woman? She sighed deeply. Despite being surrounded by luxury, Tiffany had never experienced the simplicity of anonymity. Everything in her life was protocol, calculated, watched. And in that instant, an unexpected desire was born inside her. It wasn't just curiosity, it was a need for freedom, to know if there were still people capable of seeing her value without the label of wealth. With that thought, Tiffany walked to her bedroom, opened the wardrobe, and stared at rows of immaculate clothes. None of them would serve the purpose forming in her mind. She wanted to disappear, to blend into the crowd. And for that, she knew she would have to leave behind every symbol of the life she had always known. She lay down that night with her heart racing. For the first time in a long while, she had a plan that excited her. She didn't yet know exactly how she would do it, but she was determined. She would disguise herself, abandon the image of the millionaire heiress, and dive into the real world. She could not imagine that by crossing this invisible boundary, she would not only find answers to her own restlessness, but also meet someone who would change her life forever. The next morning, Tiffany woke up before the sun. The bedroom was still wrapped in shadows, but her mind was already racing with the plan she had decided on the night before. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't thinking about meetings with lawyers, hotel inaugurations, or public appearances. She thought only of something simple, almost childish. What would it feel like to walk among people without anyone recognizing her? She sat in front of her vanity mirror, the same one that reflected the image of an impeccable heiress every day. But this time, Tiffany didn't want perfection. She grabbed cleansing wipes and removed the last traces of makeup from her face. Without lipstick, without eyeshadow, without the glow of expensive cosmetics. Her expression revealed a vulnerability she hadn't shown in years. She touched her skin as if rediscovering herself. Next, she opened one of the closet doors. The elegant clothes, the high heels, and the glittering jewelry would not serve the purpose she had in mind. Digging through forgotten drawers, she found an old pair of jeans, the fabric soft from wear, and a plain blouse in a neutral tone. She also grabbed a simple knit cardigan without any visible brand. On her feet, she put on ordinary sneakers, which she rarely wore. Finally, she tied her hair in a messy bun and covered part of her face with a discreet scarf. When she looked at herself again in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. She no longer looked like a millionaire, ready for a board meeting, but rather an ordinary woman who could pass unnoticed on the city streets. A chill ran down her spine. Part of her felt afraid of being discovered, but another part was filled with excitement. Before leaving, she passed through the kitchen. The staff had already begun preparing her luxurious breakfast: imported fruits, fine breads, exotic juices. Tiffany only smiled, picked up a bottle of water, and left quietly, leaving behind all that excess that now seemed so hollow. In the elevator, she crossed paths with a neighbor, accustomed to seeing her impeccably dressed. The woman's surprised glance almost made Tiffany laugh. This was exactly what she wanted to feel: the strangeness of not fitting into the expectation the world had of her. When the gates opened and she stepped onto the sidewalk, a cool breeze touched her face. Tiffany took a deep breath, feeling as though she was crossing into another universe. She was ready to dive into a different reality, and her first step would take her to a restaurant where her life was about to change forever. The neighborhood Tiffany chose to visit that morning was busy, but not glamorous. People hurried back and forth, carrying backpacks, grocery bags, and briefcases. She walked among them, and each step reinforced the strangeness of the experience. No one looked at her with reverence. No one stepped aside. To those strangers, she was just another woman. And for Tiffany, that was liberating. Following the flow of the main street, her eyes were drawn to a corner restaurant. The facade was simple, yet well cared for, with large glass windows through which one could see tables, arranged with light-colored tablecloths and small vases of fresh flowers. There was no luxury, but there was care. The illuminated sign bore the restaurant's name in elegant lettering, without ostentation. It was the kind of place where families had Sunday meals and professionals stopped by at lunchtime in search of something tasty and affordable. Tiffany paused in front of the door. The smell wafting out was inviting: fresh herbs, grilled meat, warm bread. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself absorb the aroma that seemed to announce she was about to enter a space completely different from what she was used to. She pushed open the glass door and stepped inside. The atmosphere was full, but not crowded. Conversations blended with the soft sound of instrumental music playing in the background. The wooden chairs were comfortable. The walls displayed paintings of urban landscapes, and the lighting created a warm, welcoming air. Tiffany chose a table near the window, where she could observe both the street outside and the life inside. She picked up the menu and noticed that, although there were no extravagant dishes, each item was described with care. Nothing was exaggerated, but nothing was neglected either. Tiffany scanned the options and decided to order the simplest thing: soup with bread. It was a modest choice, almost symbolic. She wanted to experience what it felt like to sit there without drawing attention. While waiting, she discreetly observed the other customers. A couple chatted animatedly, sharing a dessert. Two men in suits laughed between sips of coffee. A family with 2 children enjoyed their meal, the father cutting meat into smaller pieces for his youngest daughter. Tiffany felt a tightness in her chest. This was so ordinary, yet to her, it seemed extraordinary. It was then that a gentle voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Good afternoon. May I take your order?" asked a young waiter, approaching with a notepad in hand. Tiffany looked up and met the serene gaze of Daniel. His restaurant uniform was neatly pressed, and he wore a discreet, genuine smile that didn't seem forced at all. There was something in his posture, the way he leaned slightly forward to listen better, the patience in waiting for her answer, that conveyed respect. "Just the soup with bread, please," Tiffany replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "Of course, I'll also bring your water," he said, without her having asked. And in that simple gesture, of offering more than the basics, Tiffany felt the first spark of something that would change her heart forever. Daniel returned a few minutes later with a tray balanced in one hand. He placed in front of her a glass of chilled water, a slice of lemon delicately resting on the rim. Then he set down the steaming bowl of soup and the small basket of freshly baked bread, the warm scent of yeast filling the air. "Here you go. I hope you enjoy it," he said, with a discreet smile that felt far too genuine to be just part of the job. Tiffany thanked him with a timid nod. Her voice came out almost as a whisper, as if she feared being discovered beneath her disguise. She picked up the spoon and tasted the soup. The flavor was simple, yet comforting, like an embrace she couldn't remember receiving in a long time. Daniel lingered for a moment, making sure everything was all right, and then stepped away to attend to other tables. Tiffany, however, kept her eyes on him for a few seconds longer. She noticed how he treated each customer with the same attention, smiling at a child who stubbornly asked for soda, helping an elderly man to his feet, patiently listening to the complaints of a hurried man without losing his calm. None of it seemed forced. It was as if each person truly mattered to him. When he returned to check on her, Tiffany felt compelled to ask, "May I ask you something?" Daniel leaned slightly closer, keeping his tone respectful. "Of course. Why did you bring extra bread?" She pointed to the basket. "I didn't order it." He smiled, as though the answer was obvious. Because food should be an act of generosity. No one should leave here hungry. Sometimes, what costs us little can mean a lot to someone else. The words echoed inside her in an unexpected way. Coming from a family where every cent was scrutinized in board meetings, such simplicity sounded revolutionary. Tiffany lowered her eyes to the bowl, trying to contain the emotion threatening to surface. "Thank you," she murmured. "No need to thank me," he replied, already moving away. "It's the least I can do." As he walked toward another table, Tiffany followed him with her gaze, and an unexpected thought took shape inside her. He has no idea who I am, and yet, he treated me as if I mattered. The dinner continued, but her attention was no longer on the soup. It was on Daniel, on the mystery of genuine kindness that seemed so rare in her world. And it was precisely that kindness that would soon be put to the test. When a difficult customer entered the restaurant, determined to humiliate whoever he deemed inferior, Tiffany, disguised among the others, would be the perfect target for his cruelty. The restaurant door swung open suddenly, and the noise of the street spilled inside. A middle-aged man entered, well-dressed, his face carved with impatience. His firm footsteps echoed against the floor, and his expression made it clear he wasn't willing to wait for anything. Tiffany, watching quietly, noticed how the room's mood shifted. Some customers lowered their eyes, as if they already knew the man's temper. He sat 2 tables away from her and, without even glancing at the menu, called out loudly, "Waiter!" He barked, snapping his fingers. Daniel approached calmly, notepad in hand, and the same respectful smile on his face. "Good afternoon, sir. What can I get you today? I'll have the special of the day, quickly. And bring me a decent wine, not those cheap options you people usually serve," the man grumbled, never lifting his eyes. As Daniel jotted down the order, the man seemed to notice Tiffany. He looked her up and down, taking in her plain clothes, the scarf covering part of her face. A sneer spread across his lips. "Incredible. Now, just anyone can walk in here, huh?" he said loudly, clearly wanting everyone to hear. This place used to have more standards. The words struck Tiffany like a blow. She lowered her eyes, her cheeks burning. It was exactly what she had feared, being judged for her appearance. But before she could react, Daniel turned toward the man, his voice steady yet respectful. "Sir, everyone who comes in here deserves to be treated with dignity. It doesn't matter how they're dressed, or who they are." The man let out a mocking laugh. "You're just a waiter. Don't tell me how to think." Daniel kept his calm, but his gaze grew sharper. "I may be just a waiter, but in here, every person has the right to respect." A brief silence settled over the room. Some customers exchanged discreet glances, surprised by his courage. Tiffany, meanwhile, felt her heart racing. Never, in all her world of luxury, had someone stood up for her without expecting anything in return. The man, irritated, muttered something under his breath, and turned back to the menu. Daniel resumed his routine as if nothing had happened. But inside Tiffany, something had already changed. At that moment, she realized Daniel didn't just serve meals. He served humanity. That night, when she returned home, Tiffany took off her coat and let it fall over the armchair, forgetting her usual habit of placing every piece neatly in its place. She walked to the balcony of her penthouse and looked out at the illuminated city. Yet nothing seemed as bright as what she had experienced just hours earlier. The silence of the apartment clashed with the hum of the restaurant still echoing in her memory. The smell of the soup, the sound of cutlery, the laughter of families, and, above all, Daniel's calm but firm voice as he defended her. She sat down on the sofa, hugging her knees, and let the memories settle inside her. She had always believed money would shield her from humiliation, but all it took was a disguise and plain clothing to discover how cruel the world could be. At the same time, she had also discovered that there were people willing to stand against that cruelty for someone they barely knew. Daniel didn't know her last name, had no idea who she was, and yet he had stood up for her. She closed her eyes and remembered his expression, calm, yet unshakable. There had been no arrogance, only certainty that he was doing what was right. That moved her in a way she hadn't expected. Tiffany had grown up surrounded by people who measured every gesture by what they could gain in return. Friends who stayed close because of influence. Colleagues who calculated every word for convenience. And yet, a waiter she didn't know had treated her with more dignity than anyone in her social circle ever had. She stood and went to her bedroom. In front of the mirror, she removed the scarf still covering part of her face and studied the woman staring back. She wasn't the heiress who appeared in magazines, nor the executive leading important meetings. She was simply Tiffany, someone searching for something money couldn't buy. She lay down in bed but struggled to fall asleep. Her heart was restless, caught between the sting of vulnerability and the gratitude for the unexpected kindness she had received. Before closing her eyes, she made a silent decision. She would not allow that experience to become just another fleeting memory. She had to find a way to thank him, to show that his gesture had not been in vain. And with that thought, sleep finally came, carrying her into a dream where Daniel's face felt closer than she would have ever admitted. The next morning, Tiffany woke with the vivid sensation of the night before still lingering. Daniel's gaze, the firmness in his words, the way he stayed calm when faced with the customer's arrogance. All of it replayed in her mind like a song that wouldn't fade. She felt she couldn't simply return to her life as if nothing had happened. She had to do something. She spent hours pacing back and forth across the wide living room of her penthouse. Thousands of possibilities crossed her mind, yet none felt right. She didn't want to suddenly reveal her true identity, risking turning his genuine gesture into a scene of shock or interest. She wanted to thank him quietly, almost secretly, but in a way that showed just how much it had meant. She opened a drawer in her desk and pulled out a small wooden box, delicately carved. Inside, she kept old notes and childhood cards. She took out a blank piece of paper and, with a slightly trembling hand, began to write, "True wealth is not in what we possess, but in what we give. Thank you for reminding me of that." She signed only with the initial of her name, T, and placed the note inside the box. Alongside it, she added a simple business card, one that bore only the number of a personal phone she almost never used, reserved for private contacts. That night, she returned to the restaurant, once again in plain clothes. She slipped inside without drawing attention and sat at the same table by the window. She waited for the right moment, until Daniel walked away to attend another customer. Then she quickly stood, placed the small box on the table, and left almost without looking back, her heart racing as though she had committed some daring act. As she walked away, she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Fear that she had gone too far, revealing more than she should have. Hope that Daniel would understand the message, that he would see the gratitude came from a sincere place, even if shrouded in mystery. She didn't know how he would react, nor if he would try to contact her. But deep down, Tiffany sensed she had opened a door, one that could lead to something greater. something that might transform not only the way she saw the world, but also the path of her life. Daniel found the small box while clearing the table. At first, he thought some customer had forgotten a gift, but when he opened it, he saw the neatly folded note. He read the words carefully, and something stirred inside him. It wasn't common to receive thanks in such a personal way. The phrase lingered with him through the night, as if every letter had been written directly to him, and that initial T awakened an unshakable curiosity. In the days that followed, he couldn't stop thinking about that reserved woman with plain clothes and a soft voice. He remembered the way she had lowered her eyes under the arrogant customer's judgment, and how moved she seemed by something as simple as a basket of bread. Who was she? The answer came unexpectedly. At the end of the week, Daniel received a phone call. The voice on the other end was calm, though tinged with a nervousness. "Good evening, Daniel. This is Tiffany." He froze at the sound of the name. Tiffany. He instantly recognized the tone of the mysterious customer. "Tiffany," he repeated, confirming he had understood. "Yes, I was the woman you served a few days ago at the restaurant. The one you defended when that customer was rude." There was a brief silence before she continued. "I'd like to meet you. Somewhere different. I promise you'll understand why." There was something in her voice that carried sincerity. Daniel hesitated for a moment, but agreed. They arranged to meet the following evening at an address she sent by message. When he arrived, he found himself standing before a luxurious hotel, its facade glowing with light, uniformed staff stationed at the entrance. He adjusted the collar of his simple shirt, a chill running down his spine. Was this really the right place? Then he saw her. Tiffany approached with confident steps, elegantly dressed, her hair loose and well kept, her features illuminated by subtle makeup. She was no longer the woman in plain clothes who had ordered a bowl of soup. She was someone entirely different, a millionaire. "You," Daniel murmured, stunned. Tiffany nodded with a nervous smile. "I needed you to see me this way, but also the other way." Daniel blinked, still trying to process it. "So, you pretended?" She drew in a deep breath. "Yes. I did it because I needed to see what life was like outside the bubble I grew up in. I needed to know if people still existed who could see someone for who they are, not for what they have." Silence hovered between them. Daniel didn't know if he should feel anger at having been deceived, or admiration for her courage. Tiffany, on the other hand, waited for his reaction, as if awaiting a verdict. And in that moment, in both their hearts, something began to shift. The truth had been revealed, and the next step would define the course of their story. Daniel remained silent for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. His eyes searched hers, trying to understand who, after all, the woman before him really was. Tiffany did not look away. She was determined to face the consequences of her revelation, even if it meant losing the only genuine connection she had felt in years. "So, all of that, it was part of a disguise?" he finally asked, his voice low, laden with disbelief. "It was," she answered firmly, though her heart hammered in her chest. "But what I felt wasn't." Daniel frowned, still confused. "Why would someone like you do this? You have everything." Tiffany took a step closer, her hands nervously clasped. "Exactly because of that. Because I have everything. Except the certainty that someone can truly see me. I grew up surrounded by people who only came close for my name, for my fortune. You were the first in so long to treat me like I mattered, without knowing who I was." His eyes softened, though resistance lingered. "I only did what was right. It wasn't anything extraordinary." She shook her head, emotion filling her voice. "It was. To you it may have seemed small, but to me, it meant the world. You stood up for me when you didn't have to. You gave me dignity when I could have been just another invisible customer." A tear slipped down Tiffany's cheek, but she didn't try to hide it. Daniel watched her, and the barrier he held began to crack. He wasn't standing before an heiress of a fortune, but a vulnerable, sincere woman begging to be seen beyond appearances. I didn't know, he whispered. I didn't know you carried all this inside you. No one knows, Tiffany confessed, her smile trembling. But I wanted you to. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The soft music of the hotel lobby faded into the distance. The footsteps of employees disappeared. There were only the two of them, face to face, sharing a silence heavy with emotion. Then Daniel took a deep breath and stepped closer. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, she replied. Just let me show you that money can build walls, but it can also open doors, and I want to open a door for you. He stared at her, surprised. Tiffany smiled with more resolve now. You didn't just earn my gratitude, Daniel. You earned my respect, and something even greater. His heart raced. He felt that something was about to change forever. And Tiffany knew that, in the next instant, she would reveal the greatest decision of her life. Tiffany took a deep breath before continuing. Her gaze locked on Daniel's, no longer with the timidity of the disguised woman, but with the firmness of someone ready to reveal who she truly was. Daniel, she began, her voice heavy with emotion. I'm not just a customer who wandered into that restaurant by chance. I own that chain, and dozens of other restaurants, along with the hotel empire. His eyes widened in disbelief. You're kidding. I'm not. That's my life. A life that, for a long time, felt more like a burden than a gift. But when you treated me with dignity, without knowing who I was, something inside me changed. I saw the difference between those who act out of interest and those who act out of heart. Daniel stood in silence, still trying to process her words. Tiffany took another step forward. I don't want you to think I'm here to hand out charity or favors. What I want is to recognize the value of who you are. You showed courage, humanity, something rare these days. And I want that to be part not only of my life, but also of my company. He frowned. What are you saying? I'm saying, she replied, a smile forming on her lips, tender yet resolute, that I want you by my side. Not just as someone I personally trust, but as part of my future. I want you as my right hand. I want you to help me run what I've built, because your human vision is exactly what's missing in my business. Daniel's heart pounded. It was as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. From being a simple waiter, he was now being offered an opportunity that could change his life forever. Tiffany, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I only know how to serve tables, to serve people. She gently touched his arm, her gesture soft but full of meaning. And that's exactly why. Because you know how to serve people. Not just meals, but respect. And that's what the world needs. Her words hung in the air, intense and undeniable. Daniel felt a knot in his throat, a mixture of fear, gratitude, and hope weaving inside him. Tiffany smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. You taught me that true wealth isn't in what we possess, but in what we give. Now, I want to give you this chance. Not because you need it, but because you deserve it. Silence enveloped them until Daniel nodded slightly, the hint of a shy smile forming. Tiffany knew then. He had accepted, even if he hadn't yet put it into words. And there, beneath the glow of the hotel lobby and the weight of a life-changing decision, both understood their lives would never be the same again. Because in the end, it wasn't just about wealth, but about finding someone who could turn it into purpose. Sometimes life makes us believe that wealth lies in full vaults, expensive clothes, or names printed on magazine covers. But the story of Tiffany and Daniel reminds us that true greatness is born from the simplest gestures, offering extra bread, defending someone who was humiliated, looking into another's eyes and seeing a person instead of an appearance. That was what changed everything. Tiffany discovered that the empire she had inherited meant nothing if there was no purpose behind it. And Daniel, a waiter who believed in the value of dignity, became not only the bridge for her to see the world differently, but also a part of her future. In the unlikely encounter between a millionaire tired of masks and a young man with a pure heart, a powerful truth was born. It doesn't matter what we own, but who we choose to be toward others. Perhaps, as you listened to this story, you remembered a moment when an act of kindness transformed your day. Or perhaps you reflected on how the way we treat others can become the turning point in someone's life. That is the invitation today's narrative leaves us with. To live with more empathy. To offer respect, even when no one is watching. To believe that true wealth is not stored in vaults, but in hearts. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end of this story. Every minute of your attention is precious, and it's a joy to know that the tales we share here on Lasting Tales resonate with you. If this message touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the Lasting Tales channel. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. Share it with someone special. Leave your comment. What was the most unexpected act of kindness you've ever received? We'll be delighted to read your experience. And don't stop here. We have many other stories waiting for you, each one filled with emotion, lessons, and surprises. Click on the next recommended video and continue this journey with us. Here on Lasting Tales, every story leaves marks that time cannot erase. We'll see you in the next one.